On August 6, 1945, Hiroshima of Japan was bombed by a weapon unlike any seen in the world, the atomic bomb. The bomb's name was Little Boy, and like any boy, it had to develop, it had to grow, and it had to be born from the Manhattan Project. We start the story in the 1920s and 30s. Scientists like James Chadwick and Enrico Fermi had been studying the possibilities of splitting the nucleus of the uranium atom, powerful possibilities that could release tremendous amounts of energy. Soon, in 1939, suspicions arose that the Nazis were trying to make an atomic bomb of their own. Even Einstein came into the picture as he implored President Roosevelt to acknowledge the situation. In a letter written on August 2, 1939, he describes that, in the course of the last 4 months, it has been made probable, through the work of Joliet in France, as well as Fermi and Cizelard in America, that it may become possible to set up a nuclear chain reaction in a large mass of uranium by which vast amounts of power and large quantities of new radium-like elements would be generated. Now it appears almost certain that this could be achieved in the immediate future. This new phenomenon would also lead to the construction of bombs, and it is conceivable, though much less certain, that extremely powerful bombs of a new type may thus be constructed. Eventually, Roosevelt did acknowledge the situation and established the Advisory Committee on Uranium. And, while early results were limited, soon about 20 universities were involved. One of those universities was the University of Chicago and its metallurgical laboratory, otherwise known as the Met Lab. Here, two of the most important steps in the Manhattan Project took place. Headed by scientists Enrico Fermi and Arthur H. Compton, they discovered plutonium-39, a likely candidate to use for the bombs. Second, and even more important, it created the first sustainable fission chain reaction in uranium. The reactor they operated, CP-1, was astonishingly built underneath the grandstands of an abandoned stag field, but nevertheless, it was a big step for the country's project. Soon, research was transferred to Los Alamos, Mexico, and in 1942, U.S. Army General Leslie Groves assumed total power over the project, with scientists such as Oppenheimer coming into the fray. Not long after, on July of 1945, the first successful detonation of an atomic weapon occurred in Alamogordo, New Mexico. With newfound power in hand, the U.S. wasted no time in demonstrating it, establishing themselves as true world power. However, no matter the power, the Manhattan Project still has a shroud of darkness around it, setting forth the question, to what extent did the Manhattan Project inspire unity, and to what extent did it inspire division in the United States of America? First and foremost, the Manhattan Project was extremely profitable. With the first detonation, the U.S. was recognized as a country with power and to be respected, a feeling not lost on the citizens. But that first detonation and all of the others came with an underlying sense of suspicion of the other side. In a questioning by the Senate Atomic Energy Committee, Leslie Groves stated that he would recommend the manufacture of explosives be continued until sufficient bombs were made. While it can be seen that he simply wanted to provide safety for the country, embedded in his beliefs was a want to be superior versus other nations, and a want for power, all things that fed into the Cold War itself, and all things that led to division. Along with that, the scientists behind the Manhattan Project faced their own problems. They resented their involvement in the project as they were pushed to military standards, and they resented the fact that Groves himself didn't understand the scientists' morals and values. In an interview, Leslie Groves himself describes the scientists' resentment.
And interested in new discovery. He may have a problem as to whether he wants to do applied science, and for the government, that's what he would be doing. And that's a legitimate doubt, and if all the scientists in the country did applied science, it would be terrible for us. I think that scientists like to be called in and asked to advise on how to make the Voice of America a better thing. They like to be called in and asked for their counsel. Everybody likes to be treated as though he knew something. I suppose that that when the government behaves badly in a field you're working close to, when decisions that look cowardly or vindictive or short-sighted or mean are made, and that's very close to your area, then you get discouraged, and you may recite George Herbert's poem, I Will Abroad, but I think that's human rather than scientific.
The resentment extended to scientists at MetLab itself, as people like James Franck warned the U.S. of dangers of atomic warfare. At the end of the World War II, they went as far as establishing the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists to influence atomic policy. One of the more prominent roles the bulletin served is its position in the battle between Oppenheimer, an important scientist who worked in the Manhattan Project, and the government. The government had accused Oppenheimer of being unpatriotic for his voice against developing the H-bomb, but the bulletin simply denoted that view as contrary to both decency and common sense. Obviously, the scientists faced both inner turmoil and external turmoil in their part for the Manhattan Project, contributing to the division the project created. But the crux of the division occurred in the relationship between scientists and government. Take the argument between Oppenheimer and government, for example. There's clearly division present, but also consider this letter to Oppenheimer that President Roosevelt wrote nearly 10 years earlier. In this letter, he commends and applauds the scientist for his work. But 10 years later, that certainly isn't the case. Over the course of the Manhattan Project, division had set roots between scientists and government, division that must not be overlooked, and division that extended to the common man. To explain this, we'll follow the journey of one man, Philip J. Close. Close was a legal officer for the Manhattan Project, and in a letter he wrote, he detailed the experience of Nagasaki and his anguish at his involvement in the events there. He described how Nagasaki this morning disappeared from the map, in that he was tired and unhappy and uncomfortable, with no pride in having participated in the bombing. When he came home, he began drinking heavily and died in 1963. A decorated life and important position Philip J. Close had, but a marked and smeared life as well. As a result of the Manhattan Project, horrors unlike any other arose, contributing to the division and sense of guilt that people would have had. In the end, the question of whether or not the Manhattan Project provided unity or division is up for debate. It inspired pride, but also suspicion, resentment, and guilt. And as a country moves forward into the realm of nuclear energy, it is clear that these issues must be addressed. With the Atomic Energy Act of 1946, which established the Atomic Energy Commission, and the 1963 Clean Air Act, we've already gone underway. But still, one thing is clear. The Manhattan Project was immensely important. And as the first bomb was detonated all those years ago in Alamogordo, New Mexico, so was a medley of emotions and feelings, a mix of unity and division, and it is our job to corral and understand just what they mean for us and the future.
We knew the world would not be the same. Few people laughed. Few people cried. Most people were silent. I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form.